Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, but we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us, speak up, stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us, speak up, stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And welcome to this Friday edition of Kentucky's Voice. It's a cold, frigid Friday. At least when we're taping this, it is. And we're looking for some weather, of course, to come our way this weekend. Nearly 140 million Americans are under alerts for snow, sleet, and freezing rain. People from Texas to Boston are bracing for the worst of a potentially catastrophic winter storm. It's going to get bad, folks, according to all of the reports that we hear. Now, we ultimately don't know exactly what's going to happen, but that's what we're being told. The storm is going to end up affecting the eastern two-thirds of the United States. So this is a big deal. This isn't your average January storm here. This is a big one, at least according to the forecasters. It's going to bring some life-threatening cold, heavy snow accumulation, a potential layer of ice to many parts of our country that could knock out power and create chaos on the roadways. The storm is expected to begin today in New Mexico and Texas. From there, the worst of the weather will move east into the deep south before heading up the coast and thumping. That's the word I came up with, thumping New England with snow. Now, as far as what we have here in the Ohio Valley, specifically the greater Louisville region, what we should expect here, this from our buddy Carson Meredith over at Wave 3. The word for today is cold but sunny. Highs only maxing out in the mid-20s this afternoon, but a brisk, he said, northerly wind, making it feel more like the single digits. And low teens today. If you've been outside, you know what we're talking about. It stays cloudy and very cold tonight. Ahead of this weekend's winter storm, lows will fall into the single digits and lower teens by tomorrow morning. In other words, with wind chills near or slightly below zero. In other words, it's going to get cold. It's going to be really cold. Our winter storms, as far as snow and precipitation, will begin moving in from the west. As we said, this storm will begin in the west. It's going to begin moving in from the west to midday tomorrow. It's going to continue throughout the afternoon and evening. That snow, it's going to be heavy at times, making travel increasingly difficult as the day progresses. So if you got something to get done, get it done. There were pictures of the Walmart in Radcliffe with empty shelves, folks. So if you're looking for some of the staples, you can thank all those folks who truck in like 3 of those grocery carts, fill them all with gallons of milk. Like, I don't know, how much milk can you drink in a weekend? I'm not sure in 3 days, but they felt like they needed, 10 or 15 gallons of milk. And so the shelves are empty. But hopefully they got some trucks in today and they'll be refilling that up. But the heavy snow likely to be tomorrow night with significant accumulations on the table. On the order of 4 to 6 inches tomorrow night. Some locations south of the Parkway. So this is going to be south of E-Town, that area where there's the Western Kentucky Parkway comes in there. The Bluegrass Parkway comes in there. South of that, you're going to see some freezing rain tomorrow night. The good news actually is the snow. It's much better to have snow than it is sleet and ice, and that's what we're going to have. We're going to have snow here in the Louisville area and areas north of here in our viewing and listening areas. But south of the Parkway, which also includes many of the counties in our listing area, and Elizabethtown is going to be right on the border of that, and then south of there is going to be sleet and nasty stuff, ice. And then additional snowfall accumulations, they're calling for 6 to 12 inches expected in many areas on Sunday, especially with those of you just north of that sleet ice transition zone. So here's another word for you: prepare, and don't be stupid. Today's your last day to prepare. Make sure that you do it. And also, I want to mention that the Lord's Kitchen Ministries, they're going to be open, and we'll talk about that coming up on after our break. But I do want to mention they're going to be open to provide shelter and warmth for the homeless during this severe winter storm. And we'll touch base on that coming back. We'll give you the details in case you know someone you can help out. And you can also help yourself provide for the Lord's Kitchen Ministries as they take care of the homeless during this cold, wintry stretch. We're warm in here, though. Stay tuned for more of Kentucky's Voice.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
You know, one of the monikers for this show, the Kentucky's Voice, is that we're common sense here. We cover the news, offer opinion and analysis from a common sense point of view. And folks, it's just common sense today to prepare for this storm. If it ends up not being as bad as they predicted, that's wonderful news. But if it is, and you're not prepared, that's not a good thing. So get prepared, get what you need, and hunker down, and we can make it through this thing. But part of this, part of our work here is ministry and Christian-based, and of course, the Lord's Kitchen Ministries does such a great work here in Louisville, and they're going to be open. They're at 1811 Standard Avenue. They're going to be providing shelter and warmth for the homeless during this severe winter storm. And if you know somebody that could use some help, or you want to help, and Dan, do we have somebody? Nobody yet. Okay, we're going to be joined by Joni Votal here momentarily, I think, from the Lord's Kitchen. But let me say, if you have a comment or question about anything we talk about on this show today, or we have been talking about, and you're following, or if you have concerns about the storm, and tell us what you're doing about it. If you want to help out, just anything you want to talk about, we can take your comments, questions, and opinions at 502-571-0970, 502-571-0970. And you can also partner with us here at Kentucky's Voice so we can keep bringing you this information. You can text KY Voice to 53555, and you can give a one-time or monthly gift there. You can go to kyvoice.org, our website. Many different ways to partner with us. Let us know you're watching, listening today. You're listening to this program on 970 WGTK live here in the greater Louisville area, covering 27 counties here in our greater Louisville metro area. And then you can also, this is streaming live. So anywhere in Kentucky or in the world for that matter, you can catch us on the major social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, X. Catch us every day, 11 to noon. And then you can watch us on television this afternoon at 12:34 and 8 o'clock. Do we have someone with us, Dan? Okay, very good. Oh, there she is. Joni, thanks for taking a few minutes. I know this is a busy day probably for you all, but the Lord's Kitchen, a longstanding pillar here in the Louisville community, providing, helping out, especially during these storms, during times like this. Such an important thing. And you're going to be offering some emergency shelter and some warmth to those who may be homeless or challenged in terms of their living conditions. Thanks for joining us. Tell us what you're all doing and how folks can help out, and how if somebody needs what you're offering, they can take advantage of that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, we have just kind of clicked over into emergency gear right now. We serve meals 365 days a year for the community and the people less fortunate. But because of the storm coming in, we're opening up our facility and to people that are homeless, that don't have a place to stay, that maybe don't have heat. So we are welcoming families and anybody at all. There's no restriction. They can come in. We'll have food for them and a place to stay. We're going to utilize our church here on campus as well as our dining facility.
Yeah. So where can folks go for that, Joni?
It'll be at 1811 Standard Avenue, right
Okay.
here on our Lord's Kitchen campus. And as this starts off, we'll just take people there. We'll have volunteers on site that can help people and give them direction. Where the help that we need is, we need cots, we need blankets, we need just the pillows and things like that you would need. We have the food here right now. We've been very blessed. We've had a lot of donations come in, so we can provide the food and we'll have the shelter. But we really need the blankets, sleeping bags, cots of any kind.
Yeah, and folks, if you folks want to go ahead and donate those, I guess what you're asking is bring those items, right?
Yes, they can bring those items. And if they can't do that, they can go to thelordskitchen.com and give a monetary donation. And then we can send crews out to go get these items before the storm hits. That's vital, because it's going to really, having that, then we can go out and purchase these things as we need them. But we're looking for an influx. We're really letting the community know right now, the people that we're feeding, a lot of them are homeless and don't have a place to stay. So we're letting them know they're getting geared up to be placed here. So your monetary donations will always help, because we can actually get the items that are needed as it comes in.
And they can give at thelordskitchen.com, right? Is that
Yes.
pretty,
And you
pretty
just
easy
go
to
up.
do?
Very easy. You just go into thelordskitchen.com, click on give, and everything that comes in will go to this effort.
And if somebody, like you said, maybe is without heat or something's happened in their home, don't sit there and freeze. Okay,
No, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. That we're here to help the community. And there's no limits, and we're not rejecting anybody. Anybody can come in, no ID needed, just come in and get shelter.
Yeah, it's such a great work, and you've been doing this since 1988. The Lord's Kitchen's been there. No telling how many meals. I was just going to say how many meals. Just take a wild guess, and that you've fed. There's just no telling, is there?
It's not. In the last count, when we did the survey for the year, for over the several years, and we're right at about 13 million meals served total. Yeah.
And Joni, I'm all for like government programs to help people and things, and those are important. But don't you think this is the best way that Christians ought to step up? This is an opportunity for us to step up and help. And, we don't need to rely on the government for everything.
Absolutely. And that's why the church was created. That's the way God intended it, was for the church to be that lifesaver, to be that hospital, to be that place for the community. And that's what, as Christians, that's what we need to do.
Well, it's a great way to show the love of the Lord today, and a very simple way. That not everything has to be complicated. This is an easy way. And maybe you can't go, but maybe you can give. Or maybe you can. Maybe you got that old cot down there that's in good shape, but it's just old. It might
That's
be old,
right.
but it's in good shape. Don't bring anything that can't be slept on, but bring it in. Bring some blankets. Do something today to help out, and you can do it before the storm gets. The storm's not going to get here till tomorrow, so it's cold, so you can get out and get that car warmed up. Do something today to help somebody. Joni, thank you for all the work you're doing, and we really appreciate having you on today. This is great. So you have a great weekend, and keep us up to date on how things are going. Whatever you need, we'll let folks know. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
have a great day. TheLord'sKitchen.com, and y'all need to step up now. This is a chance to do something. It's pretty easy, All you got to do is go to TheLord'sKitchen.com, make a monetary donation, or show up down there on Standard Avenue, 18. What's that address? 18. Want to get that right? 1811 Standard Avenue, and just show up. Bring your cots, blankets, whatever you can give. Help somebody out today. That's a great way to help out. Of course, the Lord's Kitchen was also there when the plane crash, happened a couple of months ago, and they're there and they need your help. So this is Kentucky's Voice. We need your help here. We need to hear from you. 502-571-0970. Came across a great piece in the Washington Examiner by David Harsanyi, I think is the right pronunciation of that. But it was, and he was asking if Zoran Mamdani, rather than Abigail Spanberger, had won the governorship of Virginia, what would be different? After Democrats lost Congress in 2002, an irritated Spanberger warned her then colleagues that throwing around words like socialist or socialism had been disastrous because while people think it doesn't matter, she explained, many good Democrats running in competitive districts had lost seats. But it's not as if Spanberger was annoyed by ideology. After all, her record at the time aligned nearly seamlessly with members of the left-wing squad. It's perception that drives politics. True to her word, never once did Spanberger utter the word socialism while running for Virginia governor last year. Her ads were awash with conservative themes, stressing her family roots. Her ads also stressed her uncanny, largely imaginary ability to work with the opposition party and her law enforcement background. One of the political upsides of running against weak candidates, and Republicans were pathetic in Virginia, is that you're never really compelled to outline an agenda. Spanberger's plans could not have been more opaque. Leaning on the centrist label, Spanberger not only won the race by 15 points against winsome Earl Sears, but also helped Democrats take a supermajority in the House of Delegates as well. Even AG candidate Jay Jones, who was caught fantasizing about his Republican opponent being murdered and children being harmed, won handily. And on her first day, Abigail Spanberger transformed into Abigail Mamdani. First, she rescinded Glenn Youngkin's executive order enhancing cooperation between police and federal immigration authorities. Like other progressives, the governor doesn't seem to believe that illegal immigration is a problem or that the federal government has purview over immigration enforcement. Spanberger then rejoined the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, the environmentalist boondoggle and backdoor tax that creates a mandatory market for carbon credits that has done nothing to help lower emissions, but will cost Virginia consumers hundreds of millions of dollars. And so on and on. The point is that Spanberger succeeded in campaigning as a centrist, as a moderate, of not really being open with what her views were going to be, her policies were going to be. And yet when she got into office, she turned into the socialist, the left-winger that she really is. Can this happen in other ways? We'll talk more about that. And also today is the National Right to Life March in Washington. We'll be back. Stay with us on Kentucky's Voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Before the break, we were talking about, and I started talking about Spamberger, the newly elected Virginia governor, how she campaigned in a very opaque way. She didn't talk about her views. She didn't talk about what policies she would support. And because the Republicans had a poor candidate, she won. She won by 15 points. And nobody really knew what she was going to do. She painted herself as friendly to law enforcement. She painted herself as being centrist and reasonable. But the minute she took office, she began to undo many of the common sense and very good policies that former Governor Glenn Youngkin had implemented. And one of those, in her first week in power, she introduced, or Democrats, I guess, and what, you have to understand, when somebody like Spamberger runs, there's coattails. And we saw that happen in Kentucky in 2016. After Matt Bevin had won the governorship in 2015, his coattails brought in a Republican majority in 2016, in the 2016 election, and the Republicans became the majority in the legislature for the first time in a century. So there are coattails with a candidate, and that works both ways. That works with obviously Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, progressive, whatever. It works the same way, and that's what happened with Spamberger. And in a purple state like Virginia, it'll go back and forth. We have seen the political landscape shift constantly there because you have that northern area of Virginia, which is very progressive. It's a D.C. Suburb there, area of D.C., and it tends to be full of bureaucrats and government types who are always going to vote to support and protect their jobs and their bureaucracy. And that's what we see here. And then they tend to also be supportive of the social causes on the left. So when Spamberger became governor, her coattails brought in a Democratic majority in the legislature. And because of that, right away, they introduced amendments to end to do several things. One was to end mandatory minimum sentences in the state, to expand parole eligibility to thieves and others, exempting them from Virginia's three strikes law. And this is something that Spamberger has supported nationally. There's also a bill mandating that Virginia's children be taught pseudo-inclusive history that focuses on, quote, marginalized groups, end quote, and bills creating state-run childcare. But among the policies that she's showing her true colors on is being supportive of the Democrats introducing a constitutional amendment, again, that Spamberger supports, that would make abortion a fundamental right until birth, not only to save a mother's life, which is already completely legal in every state, but for any nebulous mental health reasons. So, and there's other examples here. For example, Youngkin left Virginia with a $2 billion budget surplus. Yet Democrats are aiming to impose new individual taxes on investments, on trust, on estates, on sales taxes, on a variety of other services and products in order to, quote, raise revenue. There's proposed new taxes on deliveries from Amazon, Uber Eats, FedEx, and so on. There's also a new 11% tax on firearm and ammunition purchases that you can still buy, which some you can't still buy. And she's all for outlawing any, really basically getting rid of the Second Amendment in the state, getting rid of any pro-life policies. And bringing making DEI a priority in the education system rather than the reading and math and educating of our students. So this columnist in the Examiner said, what's the difference? What's the difference between a Democratic Socialist, Mamdani, and a Virginia Democrat? I mean, you know, and so, I mean, all the policies supported by the radical left, she supports, but she campaigned differently. She campaigned as a moderate. She campaigned as a centrist. She campaigned as a supporter of law enforcement. And yet the moment she took office, she showed her true colors. Now, Kentucky's going to have a gubernatorial election next year. Okay. If you need something to be thankful for, by the way, this Friday, this wintry Friday, be thankful. Here's something you can consider being thankful for, that Andy Beshear is term limited by our wonderful Kentucky Constitution, which means he cannot run again for governor. So be thankful. Something there, I gave you something to be thankful. That's good news for Kentucky. May not be so good news for all of America, though, because this means he's surely going to run for the presidency. And as he does, he's going to present himself as a moderate, as an all shucks, can't we all just get along political Mr. Rogers. He'll try to hide his real feelings, his real views. But we have a track record with him, and we may get to that later in the show. But the point is, be wary of somebody who changes colors, is a political chameleon, who says one thing when they're campaigning but governs a different way. If there's a track record there, pay attention to that and be wary of that. So now today is a special day. It's the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. Thousands of believers, thousands of pro-life advocates gather to celebrate life at this event each year. They've done it ever since the year following passage of Roe v. Wade, over 50 years they've done it. And they've done it to call attention to the need to protect life and to advocate for those the most vulnerable among us, who are the unborn. The March for Life began on January 22nd, 1974, exactly 1 year after the Supreme Court's tragic Roe v. Wade decision legalized abortion nationwide. Over the decades, the march has grown from about 20,000 participants in its first year to hundreds of thousands, except for 1987, when there was a snowstorm. We can be thankful that this event came just ahead of the storm, where 10,000 even that year showed up, but that was kind of an anomaly. We've heard different speakers, and we're going to hear some clips from J.D. Vance here in a moment. But we are really glad today to have with us, joining us from the march in D.C., is the incredible warrior for life in our home state, Adia Wuchner. And Adia is the executive director of Kentucky Right to Life. And I think we have you on the line. And there's Lucy Bryson Cole, who's the outreach director for Kentucky Right to Life. Can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you barely.
Hey, okay. Well, hey, what's going on? Tell us what's going on down there in D.C. Yep. Well, look at the crowd there, and lots of folks showing up. And
they are just gathering. So we will be right in front of Vice President of the United States when he's arrived. So we're going to have to move back into our position. But it is amazing to see all the young people and everyone, young and old, people in wheelchairs, elderly people who just come every year. But it is to stand here for life on the anniversary of Roe, to say it will not happen again. There's tremendous things happening in Washington. You probably heard headlines on the president's position on not funding abortion, 2 of the pro-life bills that we've talked about that were filed in Congress. And then we just got a call this morning from our Attorney General, Russell Coleman's office. And you may have seen this release go out around 10 or 11, that one of the areas that we have been looking at is that is illegal abortion bills being advertised in Kentucky. And a company called Mayday Health. And Mayday Health, he opened up an investigation on them today.
Yeah. Can you all hang on with us through the break? Do you have time? Can you have a couple of minutes?
Great. Oh. We can barely hear you. A band is playing. The crowd is tremendous. We've had students from U of L that came with us. Of course, Lily, and then head of the students from U of L's Turning Point, Elizabeth, is with us. It's just been a fantastic few days. And we're looking forward to speakers today.
Stand by.
So much passion for life, and we're really excited to homestead to represent Kentucky. Oh, and you can see we are all harvest is all in. We are all about taking about.
All right, we're hearing from Adia Wuchner and Lucy Bryson Cole at the National Right to Life March, and they're having a hard time hearing us because there's such a crowd there. But we'll be back. Hopefully they'll stay with us. We'll talk more with them coming up following the break. It's National Right to Life March Day in Washington, D.C. Don't go away.
Now,
Have
back
those
to
clips.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Well, we are unashamedly pro-life here at the Kentucky's Voice. It's part of the conservative movement. And beginning in 1974, there was an annual march held in Washington, D.C. And that was the year following passage of Roe v. Wade. And with us today from the National Right to Life March in Washington, I think we still have Adia Wuchner, who's the Executive Director of Kentucky Right to Life, and Lucy Bryson-Cole, who's the Outreach Coordinator from there. And we're delighted. We had them in the last break, or in the last segment, and want to hear more from them about the impact that maybe this march has had on getting rid of Roe, which happened last year. Can you all hear me? Okay. Well, that was one of the questions I had. And I think it's significant. You know, you wonder, do these events really have any impact? Do they matter? And, you know, especially when they're held year after year. But I think this is one we can point to and say, look, when this march started in 1974, and Adia, you're back with us. You know, I was just making the point. When this march started in 1974, Roe v. Wade had just been enacted, and now Roe v. Wade has been overturned. What impact do you think this has had on that? Okay. Well, we'll try to get them back sometime. It's great to have them on. We saw the crowd there, and those folks are real warriors down there in DC, up there in DC. But let me lay the kind of the groundwork here of what happened. 1974, Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade was passed in 1973. In 1974, the first Right to Life March was held in Washington, D.C. And then on June 24th, 2022, the Supreme Court issued its landmark decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, known as the Dobbs decision, overturning the constitutional right to abortion. And that case, by the way, challenged Mississippi's 15-week abortion ban, and ultimately ruled, and the court used that case to rule that there is no constitutional right to abortion, returning the issue to the states. And of course, there was a lot of controversy around that, including the fact that there was a leaked draft in May of 2022 that led to protests and even threats against the justices. but it did affirm that life is a state matter now, allowing places like Kentucky to protect the unborn more strongly. Now, some states have moved in the wrong direction, but Kentucky has moved in the right direction. And so I think the point I was going to make and maybe ask Adia about, and we don't have him right now, and it's pretty loud, I imagine, down there at this march, which is going on right now, but I think it's pretty clear that these types of events and politicians, legislators, even presidential administrations on the federal level, and then on the state level, legislators and governors and administrations, they pay attention when a large group of people especially show up. When they show up on the grounds and, year after year, tens of thousands of pro-life Christians have showed up there on the mall in Washington to make their voices heard. And it's taken a long time, but I think the proof is in the pudding, as they say. And now, over that period of time, we have seen this really bad decision that even many liberal legal analysts who are really being honest say was not a good decision by the court. That was one of the poorest decisions in the history of the Supreme Court, the Roe v. Wade decision. And as far just from a legal perspective, it was one of the worst. But now to see this return to the states is progress. Now, obviously, as Christians, we have a zero tolerance for abortion, as it should be, because we know that the biblical perspective on this is that a child in the womb is a separate being from the mother. It is not the mother's own body. Hear this argument, the woman should have the right to use her body and to do what she wants with her body. Well, even if that was a legitimate argument, which there's a lot of things we don't allow people to do with their own bodies legally, but the fact is that baby is a separate being. It's got a separate DNA. It's got its own fingerprints. It's nobody else like it. The woman is the vessel. She carries the baby. It's certainly important. The mother is very important, but it's not her body. It's a separate body. And I get kind of tired of this argument about a woman's right to choose. Well, we don't give anybody the right to choose to eliminate the life of a child or anybody for that matter. So why is it that we have people fighting to keep the right to allow an unborn child to be destroyed in the womb of her mother or womb of his mother just because they haven't made it to birth yet? What kind of nonsense is that? And this governor that's been elected in Virginia wants the right to abortion up to birth. And so we have to continue to stand against this, even from whether it's from a legal perspective, a conservative perspective, a Christian perspective. Any way you look at this, it's wrong. It's illegal to take a life. And unless you believe that's not a life, and yet there's plenty of scientific evidence, biological evidence, physiological evidence that is a life with heartbeat, with fingerprints, with their own DNA. And it's time that we recognize that and reject this foolish argument about this being a woman's right to choose. That we do have some right to choice. But look, the right to life is not the right to life trumps the right to choose. Now, as the Trump administration has clearly been a pro-life administration, and someone says, well, he wasn't always that way, or he really isn't pro-life, but he's just doing this for political points. And what I say is, who cares? What do we care? As long as a politician does the right thing, what do we care? I mean, Andy Bashir finally signed a tax cut into law a couple of years ago because it was a campaign year. He did it for political purposes, but it was the right thing to do, to give Kentuckians more of their hard-earned money. There could be 1,000 reasons why somebody does the right thing. Now, do we want them to do it for the right reasons? Absolutely. Do we want them to have the right motivations? Yes. But even if they don't, the outcome, the fruit is they did the right thing. And what do we care as long as this president does the right thing? And sure, we'd like to have both, but as president, we need him to do the right thing for America, America first, whether he personally holds that view or not. I could care less. President Trump, though, is a true pro-life president. This is a pro-life administration. He was the first sitting president to address the National Right to Life March during his first term in office. And then, right after last year's inauguration, Vice President J.D. Vance reflected on the theme, Why We March, as he shared some personal stories about his own family and his awe of new life while underscoring our duty as Americans to protect it. Let's hear that first cut.
Now, as you all know, the event theme this year is life, why we march. And there are obvious answers to the implicit question it poses. We march to protect the unborn. We march to proclaim and live out the sacred truth that every single child is a miracle and a gift from God. Now, each time Usha and I welcomed our own children into the world, we saw firsthand the indescribable beauty of new life. And yes, as you can see, sometimes the behavioral challenges that we had on Monday, but they were good. They were good. And watching all three of our kids grow, learn, and become who they are today has been the single greatest blessing of our lives. Now, every parent here knows that feeling, that awe at a newborn child. It is our responsibility to cherish
and to protect it, was what he said. But one of the real reasons I wanted to play this was Vance gets pretty candid about America's need for more families, calling for government and cultural changes to make it easier to have and raise kids, shifting success metrics beyond just economics. And he really lays out a bold and practical pro-family vision for America. Let's hear another clip before we go to our break here.
Very simply, I want more babies in the United States of America. I want more happy children in our country. And I want beautiful young men and women who are eager to welcome them into the world and eager to raise them. And it is the task of our government to make it easier for young moms and dads to afford to have kids, to bring them into the world, and to welcome them as the blessings that we know they are here at the March for Life. Now, it should be easier to raise a family, easier to find a good job, easier to build a home, to raise that family in, easier to save up and purchase a good stroller, a crib for a nursery. We need a culture that celebrates life at all stages, one that recognizes and truly believes that the benchmark of national success is not our GDP number or our stock market, but whether people feel that they can raise thriving and healthy families in our country.
And you know, we don't have time for another clip, but one other thing he said that was really important at last year's March for Life, Vice President J.D. Vance, is reminding us that the fight for life is a joyful one. And I would say that's true about many issues. He said he used to get frustrated about why people don't see the issue like we do. Well, it's okay to wonder that and even try to help them see it, but don't let it take away from the joy of what you know and the peace and strength that comes from knowing you're on the right side. Stay with us.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, and glad to have you with us here on this Friday. And again, we want to encourage you and urge you to be prepared for the winter storm that's coming this weekend. And if you know somebody who needs a shelter this weekend, or you want to help out, contact the Lord's Kitchen down on Standard Avenue. They're accepting cots and blankets. You can donate monetarily. You don't even have to leave your home to help those in need. And we do have those in our city who need a place. And, you know, maybe your heat's gone out. Maybe something's happened. Maybe you need a meal. Just show up today, and you'll find it there. It's okay. It's okay today. They're opening their facility, and we want you to take advantage of that. And if you can help, then help. You know, you never know when you might need help, right? And so we help each other, and that's what this is all about. And, you know, our show, we talk about some tough political issues, but also we're a faith-based ministry. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, because I believe in really living out our faith and trying to find ways to do that. One of the ways you can do that is by letting us knowing that you're supporting us and supporting this work at Kentucky's Voice. And you can do that by partnering with us with a one-time or monthly gift. You can do it by texting KY Voice to 53555 or by going to our website, kyvoice.org. We make it pretty easy, you know, to give. And we'd love to have you with us, supporting us. This is Kentucky's Voice. It's not my voice. It's not any one voice. It's our voices collectively, if you will, coming together and doing good, offering news and opinion and analysis from a conservative, Christian, faith-based point of view. And we'll try to get some of those texts here before the show's over with. And let's just do that right now. And folks, sometimes this is live television today. We've got a lot going on here, but let's just. I do want to get these in because it's important. It's important for us to hear from you, and we want to make sure that that we're offering and getting these on the air, and of course the earlier you get them in during the show, the better. But we've got a couple here, and I want to make sure I get to these. This is off our Kentucky's Voice text line at 502-571-0970. And we were talking earlier about sort of how especially Democrats are really good at hiding their true political selves until they get into office. And then you see their true colors. They're oftentimes political chameleons. And this from our text line: voters have to accept that there are no moderate Democrats, regardless of their sales pitch, and also beware of the rhinos. And that rhinos, of course, stands for Republican in name only. And, it's a valid point. And, I'll be honest with you, I don't even like to believe that's the case, but it's true. And you can't, whether you want it to be or not, whether you want it to be that way or not, we have to be realistic about the way things are. And we have fewer and fewer Democrats who are true Democrats. In other words, they are truly for democratic principles of individual liberty, which that's not a Republican thing. That's a Democratic with a small d, not a party thing. It's a democratic principle. It's a democratic principle. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it used to be that Democrats, were very staunch about government, being accountable, being held accountable, being honest with the people, not being corrupt. It was, and it was the old style Democrats. And of course, at one time, Kentucky was dominated by Democratic registrations in our state. That has now changed because really, if you want to just be frank about it, the Republican platforms now, the Republican principles are in large part, what the Democratic principles used to be. And that has changed. And now you have a democratic socialistic, and that's what it is. I mean, back to the column. What's the difference in a Democrat governor of Virginia who's now showing her true radical roots and Mom Donnie in New York? There's no difference. And don't hide it's easy to hide your head in the sand and not wish it was. I wish it wasn't. But that's the way it is. We have to acknowledge that. And so, so here's this also off of our Kentucky's Voice text line. And okay, so here I'm going to save that for a moment because we're going to talk about school choice. Here's another message off our text line, which has to go with our pro-life discussion that we've been having. And of course, today's the National Right to Life March. And this texter says, and this, by the way, is off the Kentucky's Voice text line, 502-571-0970. They say, until we have the economic will to say that abortion is murder and both mother, doctor, and complicit members of pushing for murder be tried, convicted, and punished, we will not have won. Okay, so, and I get it. This is very frank and very consistent, I think, in many ways with what should be the pro-life stance. Now, I think, though, in this case, and you might disagree with me, and that's okay. I'd like to hear from you. 502-571-0970. That's our text line. Text me your comments. But, I think that the tack that's been taken by Kentucky Right to Life, by the National Right to Life movement, is the current tact is the right approach. And here, let me set that up by saying that when the pro-life movement first started, one of the biggest criticisms of the movement was, oh, well, you're just advocating for children until they're born. But then once they're born, you're not saying anything about potential abuse, potential neglect. You're not doing anything maybe to help mothers who found themselves in a situation that they were not wanting to get pregnant, could not care for a baby, could not care for a child. But that's changed, and it's important to understand that. It's like the racial arguments of DEI. The biggest gripe I have with DEI is it doesn't paint the complete picture. That, yes, America, we did have a nation that had slaves. Many of our founders owned slaves. I get it. But that's not the way it is now. That in fact is a tribute to even those who maybe couldn't bring themselves for whatever reason to do the right thing, and it was a terrible thing to own human beings as property. That was terrible. But they set this country on a course to undo that and to overcome that. And today, slavery does not exist. It is illegal in our country. And not only that, the minorities in our country, black, brown, red, Hispanic, black, white, whatever. You have more opportunities than you've ever had in the history of this nation to prosper, to live the American dream, enjoy the American dream. And are there problems still? Yes, but we're working on those. And it's not helpful when we do not acknowledge the progress we made. And just like in the pro-life movement, those who are opponents, who are ideological, most Americans are not ideological. And I think most Americans need to understand that there's been great progress made in caring. Look at this. Look at the baby boxes where a mother now can leave her child. No shame, no judgment, no criticism. Just let's take care of the child. The focus is on the child. And speaking of the focus being on the child, what about school choice? And we hear this from our governor, by the way, so House Bill 88, filed by Representative T.J. Roberts, which we talked about some on the show yesterday. This bill would bypass the governor's opposition to school choice and designates our state auditor, Allison Ball, to opt Kentucky into the One Big Beautiful Bill's federal tax credit scholarship program. The program is similar to what we passed here in Kentucky in 2021 that was eventually ruled unconstitutional by our wonderful, he said sarcastically, Kentucky Supreme Court. What was the governor's reaction to his reaction to House Bill 88 when it was filed by Representative Roberts? He said the bill is unconstitutional. He said both in where the education funds can go in Kentucky and in what powers the state auditor can exert. Is this not the pot calling the kettle black or what? Here's a governor who abused his executive power, ignored the Constitution. He overstepped his bounds. He basically would get rid of the legislature if he could. He basically has marginalized or tried to marginalize the legislature. Thank goodness they're not putting up with it. They're being aggressive and pushing back in their policies, in what they're filing and what they're doing. And he's all of a sudden concerned about the constitutionality of something, but only when it's on an issue that he disagrees with ideologically. That's wrong, and that's inconsistent. And you need to take note of that, Kentuckians, and you need to take note of that, Americans. Here's a guy who's a political chameleon, just like Spamberger in Virginia. To some extent, like Mamdani, who was this, young, good-looking, charismatic guy who's a socialist, a communist, who has people in his administration who think private property ought to be taken away from their owners and that private property should not be allowed. One of the greatest avenues toward wealth and prosperity in our country, and he wants to destroy it. Now, this texter says that school choice in Kentucky would do more harm than good. You know this as well as I do. It's all about wanting to receive vouchers so your children can avoid the general population for fear of learning about other people. That's such a bunch of crock, okay? That's a crock. And I'll tell you why. Because education is not about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm all for kids learning their cultural background, but if they can't read, how can they learn who the great Black Americans of the past were, for example? How can they even participate in the economy? No, they end up on the street corner, in the prison, or in the morgue. So the proof is in the pudding. The evidence is there that when we have school choice, It's low-income minority Americans who benefit the most. It's a majority of school choice recipients in Kentucky or in America are minority from low-income homes. So it's not about avoiding, it's about inclusing, getting a part of the American dream. God bless. Have a great weekend. Thank you.